What if I told you that the reason you keep losing trades has nothing to do with your strategy and everything to do with your biology? I used to think I lost because I wasn't smart enough, because my setup wasn't perfect, because the market was out to get me. But none of that was true. The truth was, I just couldn't sit with fear. I couldn't handle the discomfort of being wrong. So I clicked out too early, or I jumped in too fast. And every time, I told myself it was a chart. But it wasn't. It was me, my nervous system, my need to escape. Nobody ever told me that trading isn't about being right. It's about staying present, while every part of you wants to run. So in this video, I want to show you something different. Not just how to manage risk, but how to manage yourself. And why your ability to sit with fear without reacting might be the most powerful edge you'll ever build. Let's begin. I remember the first time I froze during a trade. Not metaphorically, literally. My finger hovered over the mouse. The setup was clean. My plan was clear. And yet, I couldn't click. I sat there, heart pounding, hands trembling, watching the candle tick down against me. It wasn't fear of losing money. It was something deeper. A kind of panic that didn't make sense, at least not logically. But here's what I didn't know at the time. My body wasn't reacting to the market. It was reacting to danger. Not imagined, not dramatic, just ancient. You see, your brain is over 200,000 years old, not metaphorically, anatomically. The part of your brain responsible for reacting to threats, the amygdala, hasn't changed much since the time of cavemen. It evolved to help us run from predators, not to manage a red candle on euro to US dollar. So when you're in a trade and the price starts to go against you, your system doesn't calmly say, risk 1R, stick to the plan. No, your amygdala lights up like a fire alarm, screaming, danger, uncertainty, run. That's not weakness. That's biology. Let's talk chemicals for a second. When you see a position turning red, your body releases cortisol, the stress hormone. Your heart rate goes up. Your vision narrows. Your breathing shallows. And your prefrontal cortex, the logical part of your brain, goes offline. So if you've ever made a trade and thought, what the hell was I doing? Now you know, it wasn't you. It was your nervous system hijacking the wheel. Tom Hoogard once measured his heart rate during trades. At rest, 65 beats per minute. During a winning trade, 72 BPM. During a losing trade, 138 BPM. That's not stress. That's survival mode. Now imagine trying to make rational decisions while your body thinks you're being chased by a lion. That's the real war in trading. Not you versus the market, but you versus your evolution. And it gets worse. If you grew up in a chaotic or unpredictable environment, divorce, poverty, instability, your amygdala is likely even more sensitive. You're wired to overreact to uncertainty. So when the market twitches, you flinch. It's not just psychology. It's trauma physiology. And this is where most traders make their biggest mistake. They try to think their way out of fear. They watch mindset videos. They repeat affirmations. They convince themselves they're disciplined. But then, one red candle, one spike, one whipsaw, and it's gone. They're back in panic mode, making emotional trades they swore they'd never make again. Why? Because you can't outthink a survival response. You have to train your body to stay. Professional athletes know this. So do soldiers. So do surgeons. They don't try to remove fear. They practice performing while afraid. A Navy SEAL doesn't stop breathing hard when he's in danger. He just knows how to operate within the chaos. It's the same in trading. You will feel fear. You will want to run. You will feel like closing early or jumping in too fast. The question is, can you pause long enough to choose your response? Because if you don't, fear will do the choosing for you. That's why so many traders exit too early just to feel safe, jump into setups without confirmation, overtrade to escape discomfort, freeze and miss entries, seek dopamine hits, not data, and afterward, they blame the strategy, or the market, or bad luck, But none of that is the root. The root is this. Most traders have never practiced feeling fear without reacting to it. No one ever taught us how to sit in the storm without trying to stop the rain. But the best ones, they don't avoid fear. They get familiar with it. They know the signals, the heartbeat spike, the shallow breath, the mouth tremble, and instead of resisting it, they breathe into it. I once spoke to a trader who said something I'll never forget. The day I stopped needing to feel calm before executing was the day I started trading like a professional. Because calm is not a prerequisite. It's a result of staying, of breathing, of not running. Here's a shift. Fear is not the enemy. It's just data, like volume, like structure, like price. Fear says something feels uncertain. That's all. It's not a command. It's a signal. And once you can hear it that way, you take back control. Now, this doesn't happen overnight. It takes training, like building muscle, like rewiring instincts. But the first step is awareness. Just knowing this isn't weakness. This is evolution. And I can work with it. Because once you stop fighting fear, it loses its grip. And when fear loses its grip, you stop sabotaging your edge. So what's next? Well, now that you know your nervous system isn't built for trading, what happens when that fear doesn't just whisper, but takes over your entire perception? What if fear doesn't just make you panic, but makes you see the market wrong? Let's talk about that in part 2. Let me tell you about a day that still haunts me. It was a clean setup. Euro to US dollar. Bull flag. Textbook structure. I had taken it before many times. I even had it logged. 14 trades. 11 wins. High probability. My edge. But that day I hesitated. I stared at the chart for what felt like forever. And then I told myself, something feels off. It's probably a trap. So I did nothing. And I watched the price explode 200 pips without me. But it wasn't the missed profit that hurt. It was a realization later that I wasn't trading the chart. I was trading my fear. That moment became my first glimpse into what I now call the fear loop. Here's how it works. A setup appears. Your system gives you the green light, but something inside you resists. You feel a twist in your stomach, a flicker of doubt. And instead of facing it, you push it down. You tell yourself, stay disciplined. Don't be emotional. Stick to the plan. But you're not calming yourself. You're trying to shut something out. You're silencing your nervous system, like taping over a fire alarm and hoping the fire goes away. And for a moment, it works. You move on. You pretend you're fine until the next setup comes. And this time you click too fast. You force a trade. You chase a loss. You abandon your rules. And afterward, you don't know why, but I'll tell you why. Because fear doesn't disappear when you ignore it. It builds pressure under the surface until it explodes through your logic like a cracked dam. This is what I call the fear loop. It starts with a trigger. You suppress it. Then it turns into an emotional explosion. After that comes shame. And then the whole thing starts again. This pattern is responsible for more blown accounts than any bad strategy ever will be. Let's get honest for a second. Have you ever hesitated on a trade you knew was solid? Closed early because you felt uncomfortable? Frozen when it was time to size up? Held on to a loser because you couldn't bear to be wrong again? That's not strategy. That's not being cautious. That's unprocessed emotion pretending to be disciplined. Because here's the truth. Your nervous system has a memory. It remembers the last time you lost. The panic, the regret, the shame. It stores those feelings. And it tries to protect you from feeling that again. Not by making you wiser, but by making you hesitate. And if you don't notice the pattern, you'll believe the lie that the market has changed, that your setup is broken, that you lost your edge. But that's not it. You didn't lose your edge. You lost your clarity. Because fear changes how you see. It shrinks your perspective down to your last mistake. It makes every red candle feel like an attack. It makes every bounce look like betrayal. And it makes you forget your own numbers. Let's go back to that bull flag. Later that night, I opened my journal. I had 14 log trades of that exact same pattern, and I had won 11 of them. The data was there. The edge was real. But fear doesn't care about numbers. It cares about survival. In that moment, I wasn't reacting to the chart. I was reacting to a memory. Something old. Something unresolved. That's what the fear loop really is. It's not about what's happening right now. It's about something your body still remembers from before, and that memory is driving your behavior. Even if you don't see it, that's why traders who ignore their emotions suffer the most. Because every time they push fear away, they disconnect a little more from reality. They don't just lose trades, they lose trust in themselves, in their system, in the market. So what do? We start by getting honest. Ask yourself, what setups make you hesitate? What trades make you overthink? When does fear hijack your process? And what does that fear feel like in your body? That's where the work begins. Not with new indicators, not with more backtesting, but with awareness. Tom Hoogard once said, I didn't need a better strategy. I needed to understand what fear felt like before it took over. So he started journaling his emotions, not just his entries and exits, but what he felt moment by moment. And over time, he started to see the patterns. Fear didn't show up randomly. It had a rhythm, a fingerprint, a voice. And once he learned to recognize it, he could choose how to respond. Here's something I want you to remember. Fear doesn't want to ruin your trading. It just wants to be acknowledged. That tightness in your chest, that hesitation before entry, that urge to exit early, it's not weakness. It's not failure. It's just your nervous system saying, last time this happened, I got hurt. Are we really safe now? And when you pause and breathe and pay attention, you create space. And in that space, you find choice. Because fear only controls you when you try to silence it. I've come to believe that fear is not the enemy in trading. It is the mirror. It shows you where you are still reactive, where you are still holding pain, where you are still not free. And the amazing part is, once you see it, you can start to work with it. You can train your body. You can create new responses. You can build emotional strength, not so that you stop feeling fear, but so that you can feel it fully and still follow your plan. Because the goal is not to eliminate fear. The goal is to stop obeying it. And that brings us to something even deeper. Now that we talked about how fear loops hijack your process, the next question is this. Can you stay calm while everything inside you wants to panic? Can you take a trade while your hands are shaking? Can you stay steady inside the storm? Let's talk about that in part 3. I used to think the goal was to feel calm before placing a trade. That if I was still anxious, I wasn't ready. That real professionals always felt composed. But that was a lie. Because the truth is, even the best traders feel fear. The difference is, they don't wait for it to go away. They act anyway. One trader told me, the day I stopped waiting to feel calm was the day I finally became consistent. And that line hit me, because I realized what I was really chasing wasn't a win. It was a feeling, relief, certainty, control. And trading doesn't offer that. It never has. It offers risk, uncertainty, discomfort. So what do you do when fear shows up? What do you do when your system says, enter, but your stomach twists, your chest tightens, your hands hesitate, and every voice inside says, don't mess this up? Most people freeze, or overthink, or click anyway just to make the discomfort stop. But there's another way, and it starts with stillness. Not stillness as in peace and quiet, but stillness as a skill, the ability to pause, to notice, to hold your ground when your entire body wants to flee. Let me give you a picture. Imagine a soldier in combat. There's chaos all around, but he's trained. His breathing slows. His focus narrows to just what matters. He doesn't ignore the fear. He operates with it. That's what stillness in trading looks like. It's not pretending you're not scared. It's trading in full awareness that you are, and still following your plan. I remember one trade that tested this. It was during a volatile NFP week. Gold was whipsawing like crazy, But my system gave me a clean setup. My plan was there. My levels were drawn. My stop was placed. But as price approached entry, I felt that wave. You know the one that says, what if it spikes and reverses? What if this is the one that blows the account? What if I just wait? My palms were sweating. I almost pulled the order, but then I did something different. I took one deep breath, closed my eyes for 3 seconds, and said out loud, I feel fear, and that's okay. That one sentence changed everything, because it gave me space, not to eliminate the fear, but to let it sit beside me while I did my job. And that's what trading is. It's doing your job, while fear whispers in your ear. Now here's what most traders get wrong. They think discipline means being robotic, cold, emotionless. But robots don't feel risk. Robots don't evolve. You're not a robot. You're a human being with a nervous system that's doing its best to protect you. The goal isn't to shut that system down. The goal is to build a relationship with it. So how do you practice stillness? Let me give you 3 tools. First, the breath. It sounds simple, and it is, but it's powerful. 3 slow belly breaths. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Do it right now. You'll feel your body shift, your heart rate drop, your vision widen. That's not woo-woo. That's biology. Second, delay. Add a rule to your system. Before placing any trade, wait 60 seconds. Use that time to ask 3 questions. 1, is this my setup or my emotion? 2, what would I tell a friend to do right now? 3, can I emotionally afford to lose this trade? If you can answer calmly, proceed. If not, pause. That delay will save you thousands. Third, the physical anchor. This is something Tom Hoogard uses. When he feels panic rising, he touches his desk. The wood, the texture, something real, something grounded. It brings him back to the moment, back to his body, back to the room. Because fear lives in the future. Stillness lives in the now. And the more you practice coming back to now, the less power fear is over you. Here's what I learned. You can't control your first reaction, the spike of adrenaline, the fast heartbeat. That's automatic. But you can control the second one, the choice. You can notice the fear and choose not to act from it. That's the edge. Not more indicators, not a better entry, but the ability to stay present in the fire and still execute. I call it the Stillness Edge, and it's rare because it takes practice, not chart time, but body time. You don't build it by reading books. You build it by feeling fear and choosing to stay anyway. Let me repeat that. Stillness is not the absence of fear. It's the ability to feel it and not flinch. And the more you practice that, the more your trading changes. Not because the market stops being scary, but because you stop needing it to be safe. And that shift, that inner shift, is where everything starts to transform. So now let me ask you something. What would happen if you stopped trying to feel calm before every trade? What would happen if you stopped waiting for the fear to disappear? What would change if you learned to carry fear without letting it steer? Think about it, because in the next part, we're going even deeper. We're going to explore the real addiction behind most traders' worst decisions. It's not money. It's not risk. It's not even fear. It's the craving for something far more dangerous. I'll see you there. So let's come back to the question that started all of this. Why do smart traders keep losing? Why do disciplined people still break their rules? Why do we keep doing the very things we promise we'd never do again? It's not because we're weak. It's not because we're stupid. And it's definitely not because the market is out to get us. It's because we never learned how to stay with discomfort, to stay with fear, to stay with ourselves in the middle of the mess. We were taught to chase setups, to chase high win rates, to chase certainty. But the traders who last, the ones who evolve, they don't chase. They pause, they listen, and they trade with fear sitting quietly beside them. Not because they've eliminated it, but because they've trained their system to act anyway. That's the work, not to become fearless, but to become present. Not to win every trade, but to show up for each one with clarity, with care, and with calm. And here's the most important part. You will lose trades, sometimes a string of them, and that will never stop feeling uncomfortable. But if you can lose without losing yourself, you're already winning. Because your job as a trader is not to control the market. It's to control your attention, your decisions, your energy, and the more you can stay steady. In moments when everything inside you wants escape, the more power you will begin to feel. Not because your results changed overnight, but because your relationship with pressure did. And that is everything. So if you're watching this and you felt yourself in this story, the hesitation, the panic, the regret, you're not alone. You're not broken. You're just human. But now you have a choice. You can keep fighting your fear, or you can start walking with it. You can keep chasing wins, or you can start mastering stillness. And if you're ready to try that, here's your next step. Write this down. Put it somewhere you can see it. On your desk, on your screen, on your phone. I am not here to feel safe. I am here to stay steady. Let that be your reminder. Every time the fear comes back, every time the urge to run creeps in, breathe, pause. Remember who you are when you don't flinch. And if this video helped you feel seen, or if you know another trader who's silently struggling with fear, send this to them. Don't say anything. Just share the mirror. And if you want to keep building this kind of trading mindset, not just smarter, but stronger, hit subscribe. Not for me, for you, for the trader you're becoming. I'll see you in the next one.